One of the main reasons why funding coaches don't scale as fast as they'd like to is that it takes you too long to get paid from your clients. You get them signed up, they go through optimization, they get funding, and then they finally pay you, but you just spent all this time working with them before you finally got paid and had the money to reinvest back into your marketing machine. So instead, I want to show you how to collect more money up front so you can immediately reinvest back into your marketing and scale a lot faster. So we're going to talk about how to collect more money upfront for your clients. And this is very important because number one, you probably have costs involved with getting a client. So this might be ads, this might be a setter, you might have a closer on your team. And so let's assume that it costs you around $500 to $1,000 to get someone signed up. And because we have a cost, it's going to determine our scale velocity. So let's compare two different situations in which someone does not collect any money up front compared to someone that does. So let's assume that it costs around $500 to get a client. We want to get 4 clients. So that's $2,000, right? And so if we're not collecting anything up front, we just put $2,000 in. So let's say that you have business funding or you have some savings that you're using to put into your business, right? But if we're spending money without collecting any money up front, we're basically going further and further into a hole, right? Because now we're going to wait, let's say 4 months before getting paid, right? So 4 months on the conservative side, I put someone through optimization, go through maybe 2 or 3 rounds of funding and get them the desired outcome of maybe around 1 to 150K, right? And just 2 rounds of funding. And so the entire process just took 4 months. But if we're spending money on ads, we spent 1 month going 2,000 negative, another month 2,000 negative, another month 2,000 negative, and now we're finally getting paid, right? So we're going deeper and deeper in the hole, and we're still maintaining before we can actually reinvest back into it, right? But at least thankfully with funding, we do make quite a bit of money per client because we can probably make around 8 to 12K just if we get them around 100K in funding, right? So at least the cash collected once we do get them there is very good. But if instead of waiting the 4 months to finally reinvest back into the marketing machine, let's say that it took us the same $500 times 4 clients, the 2K, right? But we had a way to cash collect upfront $2,000. Well, what would happen in this case is that while we still had the same timeline of getting the big chunk of money on the back end, well, now this 2K turns into 8K that we can then reinvest back into the machine right away. And so now we would have the chance to scale the ads the very next month instead of waiting 4 months, right? So this increases our scale velocity and how fast we can move because one client that signs up basically allows us to get 4 more clients. One client pays to get 4 more. So we basically have an infinite scale velocity because if we just spend more and more money every single month, we know that we can go get some more. So that's why there's some funding coaches out there that might have started after you did, but they've grown so much faster is because they have a different money model. They basically have found ways to value stack inside of their program, collect money up front, and then reinvest that money immediately inside of their marketing machine. And we've done this over and over with clients inside of our Credit Coach Academy. We had a client right here that charges $2,500 up front. So in just 1 week, shortly after starting with us, they were able to cash collect $24,000 with their clients. We have some clients that never collected any money up front either. And so this client started collecting up front. And so he could immediately reinvest back into his ad and start to scale. This client right here went from not charging anything up front to locking down the deal with $500 with the remaining payment due in a couple days. And so these clients can scale a lot faster because they're reinvesting back into their marketing immediately. So what we need to do basically to allow ourselves to get someone signed up is to value stack our offer appropriately, because every single time that we're on a sales call, what we're trying to do is create a gap in between the cost of our program and the value. This gap needs to ideally be as significant as possible. And so if the value is so much higher than the cost doesn't actually really matter, right? And the dream outcome is still the same, right? The dream outcome is still funding, right? But how can we value stack in the short term to get them super excited about joining the program and pay us up front? Okay, so that's basically the goal that we're trying to create here. It's still the same program. You're still charging basically the same total cost, right? If you're charging, let's say 10% to get 100K, that's $10,000, right? And so maybe if someone's paying 2K up front and then they pay you $8,000, it's still the same program price. But what can we do to accelerate that so that we can accelerate our scale velocity? Because again, if we have a way to get paid from our current clients to go get more clients, now we have infinite scale potential. So how do we actually go about this to create that value gap and ideally increase this as much as possible so that it becomes a no-brainer offer for people to actually pay us up front? Well, that's when we have to think about deliverables, presenting this in a super sexy way so that someone is actually excited to pay you up front. So that's when we have to basically create different items inside of our program that make it clear to stand out. So certain deliverables that we like to talk about with people as to why they actually pay us is the fact that we have consultations to fix and improve their credits, right? We have different software and client resources that they immediately have access to. So this might be like a course, right? We give them a funding course, we give them a credit repair course, right? So client resources, we give them a client portal to log in and access, okay? We talk about like the support that they have. They're gonna be working with a funding specialist that has already delivered massive funding wins for a lot of different clients. So you have direct access to someone, right? And you can also talk about the psychology factor as well. The psychology that people that pay more attention, right? And so we're very different from most funding coaches out there if they're shopping around because we have very high level consultations. We're going to look over your credit profile. We have a Cinderella profile checklist that is based on working with a lot of funding clients. We have reverse engineered what the banks are looking for in a perfect borrower. And so we look at your entire profile with your personal credit, with your business, and we determine what's left to turn you into that perfect borrower. So that we're going to really increase the value of the consultation. We're going to talk about all the different resources they have access to with a course. If you really want to understand the process better, we have a portal which allows you to log in and get a one-stop shop access as to everything you need to do. You can track your funding wins. You can reach out to us, right? The support, you're working with very high-level consultants that have done this repeatedly in the past, right? So we're going to stack a lot of deliverables, okay? And then obviously sometimes a psychology factor. But this is not necessarily the sauce right here, okay? Because someone might already have seen the value, they may have already been shopping around, they understand the different funding offers that are out there, but that's when we need to do one of two different things, okay? So the deliverables is definitely very important. You want to value stack as much as possible, and that's why a lot of people pay upfront for services is because they have to get them in the system, because they have to get everything else started. So I would also talk about getting you in the system, right? And as to why we mentioned the course in the portal, right? And there are costs for our business to get you started. So that's why we need to charge something, right? So the deliverable is very important, but also the bonuses. So that's when you take basically your overall program and you break off a piece, right? It's still the same program, but now this piece right here becomes a bonus, okay? And so this becomes a bonus that they have access to if they want to join today, if they're willing to invest into the program itself. Okay, so that's when you can think about getting a little creative based on what they're saying on the call and then structuring the offer in a sexy way that gets them excited about paying. Okay, so some examples that we have, for example, is a 5KO accelerated credit repair. We tell them that usually we charge $2,500 for this, but if they wanted to get started, we could only charge the $1,000 down, $2,000 down, and you still have access to everything else. And we're not going to increase the overall price of the program, right? It's an additional bonus that I'm willing to offer you. For example, we have like Age Corps, right? Something very unique that the client might sign up for. So this is something that we actually charge $10K up front for, okay? So that allows us to charge more up front because there's an inherent bonus inside of here, right? This includes the Age Corp. We're charging $10,000, which is more than some people charge overall for funding. We're collecting that up front. Okay, so that could be a good one right here. You could talk about travel passes as an added bonus, right? You can talk about all kinds of different things, okay? Because if we can structure the offer correctly right here and break off really the most important nugget that they care about, now we can restructure the offer to be doing them a favor, basically. Even though it's the same program, we're just restructuring it in a smart way to be able to make that upfront cost a no-brainer. Okay, so that's something that I would really consider as well, is thinking about different bonuses that you can add on to your program to make it obvious to sign up even if there is an upfront cost. And the final one here is a dream outcome, tying the overall program to what they really desire. So some of our clients here, such as this one, for example, they work with a lot of real estate investors. And so their overall promise is helping them get funding and then basically introducing them to various real estate programs. So at that point, now it's like a full suite type of offer. So we're talking about getting them funding and then turning that into basically actual income, right? And so we might have to think about the dream outcome as well. Like, what is the funding for? And then basically, again, presenting it in a certain way that this upfront investment is something that allows you to turn it into something else, right? So if you're paying $2,000 out of pocket and we charge $8,000 on the back end, for example, well, this is going to come only out of funding, right? So you're really only spending $2,000 for the program. And then once we get you the $100,000 of funding, this will allow you to maybe buy a real estate property and hopefully make $2,000 a month or whatever it is, right? Or we can get you $100,000 of funding to invest into a robot right here that can then also make you $2,000 per month or whatever, like a trading bot, for example, right? So we want to really tie it into what they really care about and really accentuate that. That's the whole part of sales too, is we're not just trying to say that this is a cost, it's an investment to have the transformation that they're looking for. And so ideally, if our out-of-pocket cost can be lower than what this funding can translate to, that's a no-brainer offer, basically, right? So if someone can pay us $2,000 out of pocket, but they can use this to launch a business that makes $30,000 a month. They can use this to add an additional $20,000 a month revenue to their business. They can use the funding to create passive income, right? Well, now the $2,000 becomes insignificant, right? Because we've created that value gap of value or like opportunity compared to the costs. And so now the $2,000 doesn't matter because the $2,000 turns into $2,000 a month, right? And because the only fee that's out of pocket is a $2,000, and we can use the funding to pay the remainder amount as well. And so that's what I would really start to think about, is basically how do we restructure or represent our offer so that ideally it's a no-brainer for them to actually want to get started and even make that payment for you. So the overall goal here is to find a way to charge at least $2,000 up front, basically. If we have to, we can go down to maybe $1,000, right? $1,000 to $2,000. But the overall goal here, if we can collect upfront, this will allow us to increase the scale velocity to reinvest back into our business and go a lot faster. So we can do that with the deliverables, with various bonuses and breaking off from the program, and also really thinking about the dream outcome, so that a $2,000 investment becomes insignificant compared to how much value they're going to have inside of your program. So that's the overall structure and the thought process behind charging more money upfront for your funding clients and accelerating your scale velocities. But if you do want some additional help here from myself and my team with restructuring your program and your sales process so you can start to charge money up front, that's exactly what we do inside of the Credit Coach Academy program. And you can learn more about that by clicking on the link down below. We'll help you with your sales process and your marketing messaging so that you can charge money up front and accelerate your scale velocity. So if you're interested in that, click on the link down below. But otherwise, I hope this video is very helpful for you for understanding exactly how the top funding coaches blow up their business and hit these huge months. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.